Hello, hello, good evening. Thank you so much for joining tonight's event. Thank you for visiting virtually my home in Lima, Peru. It is always a pleasure to have you all in these sessions from my home that I make with love and also with the intention of showing you different pieces of this puzzle that is called Peru. In some occasions, we talk about history in my events from home. Sometimes we talk about mysteries. And in today's occasion, we are going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about architecture, the 20th century architecture of Lima. We're going to get to see an overall of the different styles that arrived to Peru, that were introduced to Peru in the 20th century. And we're going to learn why they became so popular so well. I really hope you enjoyed tonight's event. This is the second event I'm doing in the day with the same team. Earlier in the day, we also here in Lima, I had this event with the intention of giving you an introduction to this topic and also to reach out friends from different parts of the world. Earlier for me in Lima might be afternoon in Europe, for example. So I want to just have the chance of getting to show these events to all my friends, no matter where you are in the world. So tonight I am doing this event again. I hope that if you're joining for a second time, you enjoy it. Thank you so much to see, well, by the way, all of this group of people. Muchas gracias, amigos. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much. And we are now officially starting with this shorty. Usually my long tours are about a 1 hour length. So this is going to be about 30 minutes or a little bit less. And well, my intention is with this tour in particular, prepare you for another tour I'm going to be doing on Friday. This Friday, I'm going to Barranco. This is one of the 43 districts of Lima. It's a really beautiful neighborhood, very old, and we're going to explore together the styles we will see today, well, tonight here in this lecture. So, well, if you want to complete, let's say, your understanding about the architecture of Lima, don't miss out my tour this Friday. So, well, I hope you are ready to start. Thank you so much. My name is Vanessa Vasquez. I am an official tour guide from Lima, Peru, and my intention is always to share different themes and topics about the history of Peru. If you can, please follow my channel if you want to learn more about Peru, its history, and in particular, Lima, my city. So let's start with this event. So tonight's event is about the architectures of Lima in the period of the 20th century. We're going to focus especially in the beginnings of the 20th century, the first decades of the 20th century, which was also a time of prosperity in Peru. And it was a time when Peruvians were able to afford to replicate European styles. We're going to try to understand what was happening in Peru also back then for us to intend to recreate European styles here in a land that is so distant. Oh, Peru is so far away from Europe. For most of you, Peru is a distant land, of course, even more Lima. But here in Lima, we were very ambitious in terms of architecture. We wanted to replicate the pieces of important cities around the world. So that's why, particularly in that time, Lima turned into a very European style city, right? So we're going to continue now with the first style I'm going to share with you, and it is the Bauhaus. We are not going in historic order, by the way. I'm just taking some random styles that you will see everywhere in Lima. If you were with me on a tour in person in Lima, you will be surprised with the different architectures you'll find in the city. So in the case of Bauhaus, the Bauhaus style was introduced in Peru around the 1930s and 40s, but it was created in the year 1919 after this First World War as a response to reconstruct with a, let's say, short budget the cities that were destroyed by the war, and also to create, let's say, constructions that were cheap and affordable for the middle class and the low-income families in different parts of Europe. So in Peru, it also responds the same intentions too. So most of the Bauhaus architecture of the 1930s and 40s were created for create spaces for the emerging middle class people of the city of Lima in particular. So some details about the Bauhaus that can help you to recognize this style is, first of all, the use of shapes like triangle, square, circles. So you can always see clearly these lines. Sometimes the use of yellow, red, and blue also very, very common in the Bauhaus design. This picture you are seeing here is also related with the most famous Bauhaus project we have in Lima. And look at the elements once again, the triangles, the rectangles, the squares. This is typical of this style. So the name of the zone where these pictures were made is Residencial San Felipe. The Residencial San Felipe was a mega project of Peru that was created in Lima during the times of military president. The 1960s was also a time of big changes in the country, from a sort of like a feudal style country in which we had the landowners, rich landowners, and poor people, poor peasants who were sort of depending on these landowners. We started to have a middle class in the city. So I'm trying to remove one of my earrings, I think is making some noise. So in the year 1962, the project started and continued until the year 1969. So Residencial San Felipe was a mega, work or a complex that involved part of the government investment, and it was a big residential zone for middle-class families. It gave to the middle-class families the possibility of living in comfort in apartments which were very, very wide, with common social spaces, with big parks, with sections for shopping malls or let's say markets and stores, schools also, but in a zone that was not precisely super big. So still nowadays, this location is considered to be one of the most desired sites for middle class, now even upper middle class families in the city of Lima, Residencial San Felipe. I am planning also soon to show you on a new section I have created that is called Visiting the Neighborhoods of Lima. It's not going to be all about history, colonial history. It's going to be more like a modern history of Lima, that site. And nowadays, by the way, most of the Japanese community lives in Residencial San Felipe, the Japanese Peruvian community. So now we're going to continue with Tudor style, which is another style, another fashion that became very popular here in Peru, in particular around the 1930s, 1940s. Many houses in the new posh, exclusive districts of Lima, which were former beach resorts of the city, started to be designed in this style called Tudor, right? So, but what is Tudor for some of you? Of course, you know already the style, but maybe some of you don't yet know about this fashion. So the Tudor style that we had in Peru was a copy of the Tudor style that was in use between the 15th, 16th century in England. This is also a style that was that existed during the times of the reigns of the Tudor dynasty. Also, another interesting detail is that in Peru we replicated these elements, for example, part of the Tudor in the houses that were made in the 30s, 40s. Oh, these balconies, for example, that you can see, really, really beautiful. Or this element that is sort of like a chimney. It's a chimney element, very, very decorated. So in Lima, by the way, we don't need chimneys because Lima has a very mild climate. So this was just purely ornamental, with the only intention of making the houses look very elegant and beautiful, right? Also, another detail, and by the way, this house is not located in Europe. This is a house that exists even nowadays in Lima, in the posh, elegant district of San Isidro, one of the 43 districts of Lima. And San Isidro in general is considered to be one of the most exclusive districts of the city. So you can notice a couple of details here. First of all, the timber sort of like frames in the second floor of the house. Wood is extremely expensive in Lima, especially because it is imported. Nowadays our wood comes from our jungle, but in the old days it used to come from even Central America, because the coast of Peru is desert. So we don't have rain and we don't have wood. So we don't have wood and we don't have rain, so we don't need these slope roofs, which usually in the Tudor style, the slope roofs are very, very inclined, even with 45 degrees of inclination. So just to give you an idea that this style is really not necessary. We don't need this type of roofs in the city. It's just with the intention of replicating something that we consider beautiful. So these were the two types of Tudor style we replicated in Lima. We have the palace, Tudor palace style, and we have also the modest, sort of like cottage style, Tudor style house. So these are the two types of Tudors you will find in Lima, sometimes a combination of both. By the way, these elements that are very typical of the Tudor style, especially of the modest Tudor houses of the period of the 15th, 16th century, is what we still can see the most in these Tudor houses of the 20th century in Lima, which are highly, highly appreciated. But there's another case of Tudor, which is really not Tudor. For me, for a long time, I believed all of the houses with these elements were Tudor. But nowadays, I know that there is another fashion that is called the Basque style, or the Nordic European style, which is a variant of the Tudor, let's say. But in this case, we have these elements of wood, of stone, decorating the bottom part or the front part of the houses. So, for example, this house, this is La Cabaña, or the cottage in English, was built in the year 1935, right? So we can see the style basically of the 1920s, 1930s becoming one of the most beloved, the Tudor and its different variants. The eclectic style is a little bit older. In Lima, it started to be used by the elite of the city in the last decades of the 19th century, but also it continued as a trend, especially in public spaces of the downtown of Lima. This is also the eclectic style, is part of the academist style, a style that tried to revive, bring back different decorative elements, classic decorative elements, but also repurposing them in buildings that were of, let's say, purpose for the government. Also, this style continued in use until more or less the 1940s, 1950s, would eventually enter into a decadence. because it was very expensive to build with this fashion. So here we have one of the most famous plazas of Lima, of the historic center of Lima. This is the Plaza May II. It is dedicated to a battle, a very important battle we had in Peru. It was a war for defense of Peruvian territory against a Spanish invasion that happened in the year 1866, actually May the 2nd. That's why the plaza is called May the 2nd, 2 de Mayo. And this plaza, which started to be made in the year 1874, I mean the monument in particular, it was completed with the buildings, 8 buildings in total, in the year 1924. So when we see Limanians, we see this architecture, like this style of architecture, we say this is French style. So we usually generalize these beautiful constructions as French constructions or French style. The reason is because in the beginnings of the 20th century in particular, we started to copy a lot the French layout of the cities, the French architecture in general, which were of different styles, but we copied that influence because French style for us represented freedom, represented the values of the independence. Also, because we were originally a colonial city with a square layout, with a main square that was a square, like not round, not circular, and with streets that were very narrow, that were designed in the 16th, 17th century. We passed to be a now nation, capital of a nation, Lima, right? An independent nation, a republica, and we wanted, of course, to make everything big, everything great, right? So we copied the idea of the runabouts. So we broke that square design of the city, that checkerboard design, with these runabouts and also with these boulevards, right, that were going to connect different parts of the city. This is another plaza, by the way. It looks alike to the other one we saw before, Plaza May II. This one is the Plaza Bolognesi. It's dedicated to a hero who defended Peru during a terrible time also of war, another war, the War of the Pacific. It was the war Peru-Chile. So the Plaza Bolognesi, as you can see, is also another gem of Lima. It's from 1905. We have also another building here. This one is a museum nowadays with a Venetian style. Also, we continue with the eclectic style, with this fusion of beautiful classic decorative elements from Europe, reinterpreted in our own style. So this is the Exposition Museum, which was built in the year 1872. So the Exposition Museum is located outside a zone that used to have a wall. Here we had the wall of Lima in this avenue, the wall of defense of the city, which is gone. It was destroyed also 1 year before, in the year 1871. It was finally all destroyed to make room to the new Lima, to a more French style Lima. Right? Another French building, this one here is the French Palace, of course. The eclectic style also giving us this beautiful building, which was designed to be the first apartment building of Lima. Unfortunately, this very fresh proposition of living in apartment for the elite in this luxurious construction was not really well received by the rich people. Rich people wanted to live in their own houses, separated from other families, so they did not like this style, although it had the first elevator of Lima, the first elevator ever brought to the country was in this building. It still exists inside, by the way. Rich people did not like this plan, so it was repurposed and later was used as an office building, right? The French Palace. We have another style from this trend of the eclectic. Look at, for example, all of this mix of elements. That's eclectic. Now, nowadays, we sometimes use the word eclectic also to refer to something mix and fusion, a mix match. So this is the same idea. So the Casa Sal y Rosas, the Sal y Rosas house from 1910, has a little bit of everything. So it can be considered Renaissance, Gothic, Venetian, Mudéjar, or Moorish, right? Art Nouveau and Baroque all together, right? So this used to be the house of a rich family, the Sal y Rosas family. Nowadays is the office of a political group, right? So it is in the old downtown Lima. We have another style, the Quinta Alania. Quinta is a style of construction, a style of building, in which you can see several family units, right? So different houses. For example, in this Quinta, we have one house over here, another house over here, and two in the back. They share sort of like the same style. They were made, all of these four houses, by the same architect, but they are independent houses. So that is what we call a quinta. And this model of quinta was born in the poor, modest locations in the city of Lima. Originally, the quintas were units for poor people, zones where poor people live, and they share not just one small area to live. They also share, one water take. So the water for the whole family was at the end of a corridor, a central corridor, where there was just one tap, one faucet for all the many families that live in that quinta. So that was originally the idea of the quinta. But later, the upper class families copy this style and make it like this. Very, very elegant. Right. Now we're going to continue with another style. This is the Neo-Peruvian. Bernard, thank you so much, amigo. Gracias. Thanks for your tip support. Thanks for also visiting me again here in the nighttime. Gracias. So here we have the Neo-Peruvian, that is also known as the Neo-Colonial and Neo-Inca. So what is the Neo-Peruvian? We're going by parts in this. So the characteristics of the Neo-Peruvian are, first of all, that in this period, in the beginnings of the 20th century, Peru was in the search of our own identity. And we used different forms to find out our own identity, who we were, right? We knew we were descendants of the Inca, we were descendants of the Spaniards, but we needed to find out something unique of us. Also, we found also our own pathway in the art, in the music, in the food, and the architecture could not be excluded, of course. So this was an reinterpretation of the colonial decorations from the 16th, 17th century, and also Inca or even pre-Inca architecture. So look at this. This is what I was talking about in terms of the colonial inspiration. So we have in the group of Neo-Peruvian styles, we have first the Neo-Colonial and we have the Neo-Inca. So let's first talk about the Neo-Colonial. And when we see Neo-Colonial, we are actually seeing the Moorish influence in Spain that later came to Peru in the 16th, 17th century, 18th century, that was embraced in Peru, that became part of the architecture of Lima back then, and later was abandoned after the independence. And later in the 20th century, we say, well, it was so beautiful. Why we don't bring it back? So this is a building which nowadays is a museum. By the way, if you ever come to Lima, you have to visit that museum. It's the Archbishop's Palace Museum, built in the year 1924. Look at this element here. These wooden balconies is the highlight of the, not just the colonial from the Spanish period in Peru, is the highlight of the Neo-Colonial, of course. The wooden balconies, right? With these elements like little gates that are covering our view into the house. So this was a form of protection for the families who, in the colonial times, were very timid, very shy. They didn't want to show to the world what they were doing inside. The beauty of the women, they were very jealous also with the women. So that's why they preferred to use these gates. So in that way, If you were inside, you could see clearly outside with no problem. But if you were outside, you would not be able to see inside. So these colonial houses were extremely introverted houses. We were copying that element here, and also we made it even more posh, more sophisticated, more extravagant, right? This is another case of the neo-colonial style, and this is also a peculiar case because this is a house that later on became a cultural center, but the house has, again, this wooden balcony here, this reinterpretation, very elegant, of the colonial balconies, this neo-colonial house, as you know. And we have also here, as a comparison, this balcony, which is not neo-colonial, is original colonial balcony. So more modest, more simple, of course, in comparison to this other one, which is more over the top, right? And we have here another case. This is the Neo-Inca, right? The Neo-Inca, with this 1940s sort of like a fusion of the, first of all, the concrete, the use of concrete in the architecture, modern architecture, and also, well, these elements from the past. And these buildings were not meant to be sort of like educational buildings at all, because to be honest, this is a mixed match of different styles, pre-Hispanic, that were put here, and sometimes even Mexican elements, even Central American elements. The idea was that it would look, Incan, ancient, old, and that will impress people, right? So we have this recreation of stone walls from the Incan constructions of Cusco, for example. This is the most important element in this facade, right? We have here another important monumental piece in Lima. It is located in La Victoria district, in the main plaza of that district of Lima, very close to the historic center, and is the monument dedicated to Manco Cápac. Manco Cápac was the founder of the Inca Empire, the first Inca, the first emperor of this empire. And we don't know if he really existed, by the way. Some specialists believe he was part of a mythology, of Incan mythology. Some other specialists believe he truly lived. But what is very important for us is that we consider him the founder of the Inca Empire. And that's why in the year 1926, the Japanese community of Peru that resided in Peru decided to give us a present for our celebrations of the first 100 years of independence, for our centennial of independence. We just celebrated last year our bicentennial, very important time. Also, we got our special presents for that party, but most of our most beloved monuments of Lima were made for the purpose of the centennial of the independence, right? So the Japanese community gave us this present a little bit delayed because the celebration was in 1921, but still, well, this community wanted to impress us with a monument that looked also very Incan. Look at this element here of the stones. We can even see the condor here, this very important bird that was also considered even a representation of deities in pre-Hispanic times. And we have here the Inca Manco Cápac in the upper part, right? We have the Neo-Moorish or Neo-Arab, of course. And one important detail about the Neo-Moorish or Neo-Arab style is the tiles, very important. The horseshoe arch, we're going to see in a moment what this means. And the exposed bricks in the walls. So here, for example, we have the Moorish Pavilion in the Exposition Park of Lima. It's a beautiful, huge park that we have in the city. And this section, this pavilion, is very old. Just to give you an idea that even the Moorish, the new Moorish style, was here even before the 20th century, at the end of the 19th century. So this element of the, let's say, the brick out. This is the Moorish part in this pavilion. But here we have another very important part of the new Moorish in Lima. So this gate you see here, we call it the Moorish Gate. It was a present from Spain to Peru for our celebration of the centennial of independence of Peru. So we made already peace, Peru and Spain. We had our tragic days, we had our harsh days, but back then in the 1920s, Spain also show, well, and the community of Spain in Lima also show their affection for the country with this element you see here, which, by the way, this picture here is very interesting because the monument still exists, but it's not in its original location. Its original location is where this picture is let's say, this is like a photo montage, right? So it used to be in this part of Lima, the gate, but it was moved. I'm going to show you where it is nowadays. So this is the horseshoe gate, by the way, my friends. The horseshoe gate, this is the typical style of the Moorish architecture that we're going also to see replicated in Lima. This is where, in this moment, the gate is located. It's a big park. It's called the Park of the Friendship, Parque de la Amistad, in Surco district. So it looks really nice here. It's surrounded with a big park, and it has a little lagoon, artificial lagoon. But this is not the place where originally was meant to be. It was meant to be in the center of the city. This is an old picture of the 1920s in the location where this arch used to be, right? And this is a picture of how it would look if it is still in that location. I think it looks beautiful. It is very sad that it's no longer there. It was moved away when the city started to expand. The walls of Lima were destroyed, so more traffic started to come to downtown Lima. New avenues started to come, and unfortunately, the decision was made of moving this element away. Once again, another case of this Moorish influence, in this case in a house. So you can see also this element, these arches are the typical ones of the Arab influence. And here you can see some pictures of, for example, the same type of arches, but in Spain, in Cordoba. It is called this element the dobela, right? We have also another style very popular in Peru is the Art Nouveau. So the Art Nouveau is really beautiful. It's very organic, very flowery. I think that is my style. I love Art Nouveau. If I could have a house, a vintage old house, it would be for sure an Art Nouveau house. So it's very dynamic, very asymmetric, very, let's say, sort of like flowery, right? And very elegant as well. So also some people say, some specialists, architects say that it's a very feminine style. It evokes sensual forms, and also it feels more female. So, for example, this construction from 1905 is the first photo studio of Lima, the Curret house. So it is located just one block away, the main square of the city. Look at all of these extravagant, flowery designs here. But we have also a house in Barranco, which is considered the most beautiful Art Nouveau house of the entire city of Lima. So you can see again the flowery designs, these extravagant elements decorating the houses. I think Limanians embrace the Art Nouveau because Lima is naturally a desert. We don't see much of green in the city. We don't have too many parks in Lima. They cost a lot of money. So anything that evokes flowers is considered to be very exotic and very expensive. So I think that's why people embrace also at the beginnings of the 20th century, especially the Art Nouveau style. We have also in downtown Lima another case of Art Nouveau. It was a sophisticated, very exclusive club, the Palais Concert, where the creme de la creme of Lima used to meet. That zone used to be just visited by the super rich of Lima back in that time. Nowadays, we have different kinds of, like restaurants and cevicherias and places that are very, very modest for all kinds of budgets. So it is very funny. I don't think the spirits of the rich people of Lima would be very happy with how downtown Lima has turned, because they liked to be in a place that was elitist. So the best parties of Lima were celebrated in the sky room of the Palais Concert. Nowadays is a shopping mall. We're going almost to the end of this event, the Art Deco, or the Art Deco style, which is usually connected with the 1920s, the 1920s in general, wherever you go in the world. In Peru, arrived a little bit later, 1 decade later, but still very proximate to its time of explosion. It's connected geometry, right? Very symmetrical. It's very opposite to the Art Nouveau in all senses. To me, it feels very masculine. We have, for example, oh, by the way, I forgot, the Hildemeister building was considered back in the days, in the year 1928, the first the skyscraper, I think it's called, the highest building of Lima. It was very, very high. And we have here a very interesting construction. Again, the Art Deco. It is the most sophisticated McDonald's we have in the whole city of Lima. This McDonald's this business is lucky to be in this type of construction. And look also how old this location, because we even have a original colonial balcony over here in this part. An old cinema, a cinema that unfortunately it's now closed. There's no use given to this building. It's on sale, se vende. You can see the element of this typical thing of the Art Deco, these circular holes in the facade. Very, very typical of this style. Brutalism, the Breton Brut, which means raw concrete, was the response to the damage caused by the bombings in different parts, in different cities in Europe, caused by the Second World War. So this style became the alternative to reconstruct cities, right? Many people dislike brutalist style. I know I like flowers and colors. I know what is the feeling most people have about brutalist style. But I think there's something very special about brutalist style. Is the fact that for Peru, for example, represents an era, because it became very popular in the 60s, 70s, times of a military presence in Peru. We had a military president, so it was the style that was chosen to represent the government. Very, very, like masculine again, very, very harsh, right? With no sympathy. Many people feel that connection with the military, let's say, past of Peru back then, right? So this is a building that belongs to a petrol company, Petroperu. We have here the first skyscraper of the country, the civic building, and this construction was the highest building of Peru. By the way, something very important. Nowadays, it still is one of the highest buildings of Peru. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Thanks for your support. So it has 100 meters in total. Nowadays, the highest building of Peru is 130 meters tall. Remember that we have earthquakes, so that's why we don't build high buildings. Still, we have that limitation. So the civic building is still one of the highest of the country. Sheraton Hotel is this one also as well. Is the only 5-star hotel we have in downtown Lima. Take note of that. If you want to come to Lima and you want to be in a hotel, really nice hotel, just few blocks away the main square, the only one 5-star hotel is Sheraton. And this is also a brutalist construction. There's something very curious about the brutalist style. I know that it doesn't age really good in other parts of the world, probably because of the rain, the climatic condition. But in Lima, because we have almost no rain, it ages intact. Like it doesn't change over the time. So it keeps the same, basically. So this is also another very curious brutalist building. And here we have a bank that is located in Miraflores, one of the most famous brutalist buildings we have in Lima. This construction recalls a rocket. So it's very curious. It's the only building with that style. And well, it belongs to the BCP Bank, one of the most important banks of Peru. Also, we have a ministry, the Ministry of Culture, with the same style, the brutalist. And we're going to pass to the Neo-Gothic. I have a couple of cases of the Neo-Gothic. Neo-Gothic is always connected also with the divine. Gothic in general is always related with the religion, the divine. So here we have a church from the 1940s, early 50s, the San Jose Church, and also some of the highest churches in Lima are Neo-Gothic churches, of course. The idea of these points like flames going up to the sky, you know. So this style was only used in churches. Another case is the church Cristo Rey, that is also in the old section of Lima. And finally, my friends, I don't want to bore you with too many styles, but I just want to give you the highlights. The ship style, or buque. Buque is ship, right? Also called streamline modern. So I was trying to look for this style in English, because in Peru we know it as buque style or ship style, casa barco style. But I know also now that the style in other parts of the world is also called neoplasticism, just if you want to check it later. So this style became the trend in the 1930s, 40s, up to the 50s in the beach resorts of Peru, and in particular in Lima, where the rich families spend vacation times. So what are the elements that are very common in this style? Where, for example, these elements that emulate the ships, like for example, these circular windows. We have the hangars that look like the ones of the ships, for example. These elements, that are coming out like a ship style. So people were very playful with their summer houses, and they like Tudor. They were very extremist, right? They like Tudor, or either they like the ship style houses. You can see another case here with this element that looks pretty much like a ship. So they like their lifestyle, like a navy lifestyle, ocean lifestyle. So they wanted to replicate that in the houses they live in during the summer days. So we are coming to the end of this event. Thank you so much for coming and visiting me. Usually my tours, my lectures are way longer. They sometimes take up to 1 hour. They are more about history. But if you wish to also be part of my events from home, like this one, or maybe historic tours, I love historic tours, like lectures and everything about history. That's why I am a tour guide. I love to talk about history. Please follow me. Thank you so much for my friends that are following me now. And tomorrow I'm going to be conducting another event, and it's going to be from home, and it's going to be part of my series that I call Mysteries of Peru, Great Mysteries of Peru. We're going to talk about the engraved stones of Inca. If you like mysteries, please come to my tour tomorrow. This is the third edition that I'm doing from home of this series. I like to have different series for different themes. So please come. And also Friday is going to be for going out. I'm going to take you to Barranco. So please come. I love to have you all and take you to see the city. Well, I love to do it in person, and now virtually also it is an alternative for me to show you my beautiful part of the world. Thank you so much for your participation, and especially thank you for your tip support, because it helps me to continue creating these events, to continue sharing culture also through this platform, and also for free for everyone to join. I know that it is not always possible for all of you to support all of the wonderful guys of Heygo, but it's still, having you today, it means a lot to me. So, muchas gracias. Thanks for your tips also, because you're helping Heygo. We split the tips with Heygo, so in that way Heygo keeps the platform free for everyone to join. Muchas gracias, amigos. Thank you, Bernhard. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you now and also earlier. Muchas gracias, amigo. Thank you so much to everyone. And please don't forget to contact me. Once again, I will just share with you my personal information, my Facebook group, my Instagram, my channel in YouTube, and also website. So all the best to you. Have a lovely rest of the evening, the day, wherever you are in the world, and hope to see you tomorrow. Lots of love from Lima, from your friend Vanessa. Muchas gracias. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.